All right, we are live. Everyone, welcome to Entrepreneurs Roundtable. I had to think of what the name of this thing was. I almost said Entrepreneurs Podcast.
I was actually
Entrepreneurs
going to ask
Roundtable.
that. I was like, what do we call this thing again?
Yeah, Entrepreneurs Roundtable. It's the name of this, but it's also the name of the group. But the group is kind of the mastermind behind the show. Which, speaking of, if you haven't joined the group yet, go over to Facebook or in the show notes, click the link. It'll take you right to the group. You can ask to join, and most likely we'll let you join. And yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't let you join. So
No, we won't.
and then yeah, you can be part of the group, and we have an entire mastermind group behind this show. So the show is three guys. We were getting together every week and we were brainstorming, kind of had a mastermind. We decided to some of the stuff we talked about we felt could really help others. We decided to create the show, and then to support the show we created the group, so that way other than just seeing the show, you could ask questions in more in-depth detail and whatnot. So do that, otherwise the show's only like a piece of it. So
I just want to point out real quick, Jared. It sounds like when you're talking, there's like a helicopter flying. Is that just me?
there's a helicopter. I don't hear I have my fan going, but it's not
It's kind of with your mic.
like when I talk into my mic.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Maybe just me hearing it.
That's weird. Did I borrow Gideon's microphone?
That damn awesome microphone.
Yeah, the funny thing is, he's been wanting that mic forever. Like when we went up to that event in December, like he'd been talking about it forever, and then they were giving one away, and he's like, "I want to win it, I want to win it," and then so he finally just bought it, and then now it's like, "Dude, your mic sucks. What's wrong?"
It's actually good. It just for some reason it starts to get like a little weird towards the end.
Yeah.
Maybe we keep talking about Gideon. He's gonna like jump in and be like, "Stop yelling at me."
So in case you're wondering where Gideon is, he's not here because he had some stuff to take care of. His wife actually owns a business, brick and mortar business, and their swamp coolers went out, and they're in Vegas, and it's 108 today. So he's on the roof putting in swamp coolers.
I did not know that his wife owned a business.
Yes. I mean, he helps, but it's mostly his wife's business that she runs it, and he comes in for, problem solving, and he does some stuff. He does marketing type stuff, and yeah, and then he does his thing. So that's where he is today. He might actually be listening to us. So it'd be kind of cool if he's up there, like, doing the swamp coolers, and then he's listening to our show.
Yeah.
So all right, let's jump into today's topic. So the whole idea is, I was thinking about this the other day. So backstory: Mike and I have been going back and forth. We're kind of like neck and neck, kind of like doing very similar things as far as what we actually do. I mean, he does obviously health coaching, and I'm doing more business development type stuff. But as far as like how we're both working on a product and with coaching, and like the actions we're trying to take, I guess is what I'm trying to say, are very similar. And so we both were talking about like getting our landing pages up, and then we both kind of within a few days of each other, we're like, let's just get lead pages. Like, we're trying to brute force this. Let's just do it. Let's just get it. We hear about it all the time, and it made life way easier. Well, that got me thinking, because it's like, there was a couple things I heard when I first got started. I'm going to be doing some solo videos on this, but I was like, okay, so one of them was to like get involved in a mastermind, get coaching. One of them was to not try to just do everything, but to get the right tools. Lead pages being like specifically like from day one, I've heard people saying just get lead pages. It's so much better than doing it yourself. And there was a third thing I don't remember now, but hopefully I'll remember when I go to produce these videos.
Email?
No, it was not just to focus on. It was like the whole kind of like the two-sided thing of like validation and then also enjoying it. So it's like finding the right idea and then not just trying to go, I want to do this, and then going out there and just doing it, and then it didn't work and then you quit. That's what I did the first couple times, and then actually figuring out a problem. So those were like three things I heard early on. And so like I said, I'm getting these videos together, do a little, for my just Facebook page and YouTube account series on this. And I was like, this would be an interesting discussion to talk about, because the three of us, even though it's just the two of us here, are all very similar in the fact that we all had previous businesses, and we all decided to start a new business. And then, yeah, and so like we're all going through this journey together. So I just thought it'd be an interesting time to be able to look back X amount of years ago. It was about two and a half for me, starting the first business, and be able to like, okay, here's the things I did wrong. Here's what I'd love to go back and just tell myself or whatever. So Mike, why don't you start off?
God, I feel like I have like 10,000 things I could like tell myself. I guess I'll go in order. Technically the first business I had was being in a band. Mm-hmm. So that was, and I mentioned it before, I figured I treat that as if it was a business partnership. So what I would tell myself then is, all right, you've got the passion and the why behind it, which is what I believe is successful. Now you're missing, well, you've got your passion behind it. Let's put it that way. And you're good. You guys are good at what you do. You love what you do. So those three things are very key. Now the things we were missing was being on the same page. So we all four of us never talked about what our vision was. We didn't have a mission. And we didn't, what else? So let's stick with that. And also, like, we weren't good at marketing. So first thing we should have done is establish a vision. Is like, where do the four of us see this band going in, let's say, in 5 years? Where would we have been? So that right there in that conversation probably would have ended the band, because the four of us were completely not on the same page. But if we all agreed, let's break it down. So 5 years from now, we want to be living off of the band. So then, all right, what do we need to live off the band? Well, we all want to make $100,000 a year. Let's just say that. So it's like, okay, let's work backwards then. So by 5 years, we want to make $100,000 a year. Well, what do we need to do to get there? Well, how do bands make money? Well, we need to tour. Selling CDs is obsolete because that doesn't do anything. But where else can we make money? Merchandise. All right. And how can we get all these things done? Okay, we need a record label. All right, so we need to get a record label. And what size record label is actually going to pay us? Well, the small indie labels aren't going to pay us because they hardly have enough money to sustain themselves. It's usually two guys in an apartment with a box full of T-shirts from all 10 of their bands and posters and all this other crap. And they're physically mailing everything out themselves. So that would be a stepping stone. Okay, so then there's that level. Then there's the major label level, which we need to get on. So how do we get in front of them? All right, but will they pay us? Well, from hearing from other bands, they don't make money. So where's that sweet spot? Well, there's those middle labels that are almost to major label status, but they do pay their bands. So, okay, so let's make a list of 20 of those, and how do we get on them? So it's like, I wish that I would have been able to tell myself, here's the big picture, here's where I am, what do I need to get here, but how do I work backwards to get there? And then also I'd have to find out from the other guys is, one of them might have said, well, I don't want to look at it like that. I just think if we tour and we write good music, we'll get there. It's like, well, that's just not how it works. Some bands it works like that, but that's why I think that a lot of bands out there, it's like, oh, you can't make a career of this. I think you can make a career out of it, but you have to treat it as a business. You can't like get hammered every night and go on stage. I mean, it works for NoFX. That's basically their whole MO, but they also put a lot of touring in. If you look at an old video, 10 Years of Fucking Up on NoFX put out, right in the beginning when they're touring and they're playing in front of 10, 20 people outdoors, Fat Mike is sitting there with a notebook and he's keeping track of their funds and he's like treating it as a business. And he was also very smart and he created Fat Records. So there was a business sense behind it. But at the end of the day, he just wanted to take a lot of drugs, make money, and just tour. And he's lived up to that. And they all were on the same page. Yeah. So I think that you have to have either with business partners or yourself, you need a vision of where you want to go. You need to know how what's the end result. You need to work your way backwards to get there. And with that, it's going to open up a lot of doors on, I know how to do these things, but I don't know how to do these things. It's like, well, these things you don't know how to do, that's where you're going to have to invest your money into. Yeah. If you don't know how to market, you need to pay someone to help you market or to educate you on how to market so you can, give a man a fish, he can eat for a day, teach a man to fish, he can, eat for a lifetime, whatever. Yeah. So either you can learn to do it yourself or you can hire people on. And then I would tell my younger self that there is so many things you need to do. It's not just a dream and passion. That's the fire, but you need to have the structure. And it took me until I was 32 to figure this out. So from a band to t-shirt companies to printing companies to many failed partnerships that I've had, it's all communication and being on the same page and structure and all these things. So I think people watching this, hopefully that helps them because they might be starting off or wanting to jump ship and they think it's this glorious thing, but it's, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's funny. I have a similar story, but with the film group where a group of us got together, and it was actually a buddy of mine from high school. We did like a ROP kind of film class together. And we kind of hooked up after high school and we were talking about stuff, and he had his group and then I had been doing my own thing, and I was doing more commercial work because I didn't have a crew, and he had a crew, but they were having a hard time. They didn't have the organization to they'd finished a few projects, but then they're in the slump to where they were just starting stuff and couldn't finish stuff. So we're like, let's just put it together and, create a new company. And that's what we did. And the exact same problem. I mean, first off, we didn't look backwards. We had that sense of we just need to keep making. We idolized some of the filmmakers who made it big without knowing behind the scenes stuff. So we're like, we just need to keep cranking out good movies. We need to start producing. If we can just keep making every year, we can make a feature film and get it better and better. Eventually, someone's going to discover us. We had no plan to put them in festivals or anything like that to market to that stuff. We just thought just by making these movies and putting them at the time, we had a MySpace page, and that was really the only thing. We were putting our stuff and our pictures and stuff on MySpace. So we're like, we're just gonna make these movies, and then all of a sudden someone on MySpace is gonna see it and we're gonna get a Hollywood deal. We went crazy. And it was the same thing with what you said about not having the unified vision, which actually broke the group up, because some of us were wanting to be able to just make movies for a living. And I know for myself, and then my one buddy that I'm actually still doing stuff with now that I left, and then when I came back to town, we're kind of partnering on some video stuff now for Business of Heroes. And his main focus was he just wanted to go into work every day and make movies. He didn't even care if he was rich. If he could just get paid enough to just have a house, have a family, and make movies every day. And I was like, that sounds cool to me. My main thing is control. I want the freedom. I want to be able to bootstrap and make our own money and create an actual business. Even though at the time I didn't, know how to do that. I was like, I want to have a business that we control 100%. We don't have a studio who's writing checks, who's telling us how to, because I had read all, everything I could get on about George Lucas and these directors. And, George Lucas, he was, famous for having trouble with them, and they were wanting to cut stuff out. And there's all these famous lines and stuff about it. And I was like, I didn't want to deal with that. And I'm pretty, stubborn. If I think the movie should be this way, I want it to be this way. I don't want someone else coming in who knows nothing about making movies. So that was my thing, was the freedom. But then my other buddy, and then a couple of the other guys, this one guy in particular, he was just 100% about making it to Hollywood. He didn't care what or how. The group finally broke up because we got in this big debate where he was literally willing to sacrifice his marriage and everything if he could make it to Hollywood. Wow. And some of us were like, whoa, whoa. Because at the time we'd all just recently gotten married and been getting married, and some were engaged and stuff. So that kind of split the group when he was basically whatever it takes, I don't care. I don't care if I'm having to do Hollywood sex scenes and my wife doesn't like it and it causes problems, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And the rest of us were yeah, that's not too high of a price. We're not willing to do that. In fact, we don't even want the whole Hollywood system. We want the indie system anyways. And so it broke the group up. That we were 75% done with a movie, an actual feature film we were doing. And it just killed it. A couple weeks later, we just stopped shooting. We tried to keep going, but it was going through the motions, and it was the group was fractured. It was the same thing. We didn't come together and say, here's our clear vision. And once that started kind of coming to light, it caused problems, and then even broke up friendships for a long time.
I think that business partnerships, and this is kind of taking a different turn from what we started talking about, but I think business partnerships can work for me when my biggest problem was that I had, again, your buddy, he had his own vision of, I just want to be on Hollywood. That's not wrong. That's his drive and his vision. And it's that'd be someone coming up to you and saying, well, Jared, you have to give up control. Everyone gives up control. And you're like, no. And when they tell you that, your inside just gets tight, because you're like, I firmly believe this. He firmly believes that. So in a sense, it's here's the middle, the product to say it's I don't know, some kind of mechanism on a wheel, right? That could go in any direction. And you're pulling this way and he's pulling this way. If you guys aren't pulling the same direction, this thing isn't going to go with you. So if you're pulling north and he's pulling south, that's just what it is. And that's as simplified as you can think about it. And if you guys aren't on the same page, it won't work. Now, I think that things will work. So let's say like this whole hangout thing that we do with Yumi and Gideon, I think this works because this is us showing up and just like you orchestrated this whole thing. And like, I have a vision of us people just getting together and talking about business. And before this, you were like, I have a vision of creating a mastermind group. So I'm going to reach out to me. And you were like, I'm going to reach out to Gideon. So we all went there, but it wasn't, hey guys, we're going to build a product together, because that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
However, like the three of us are in a partnership in a sense, but we also made it very loosely based. And we said, all right, well, what's our vision with this thing? It's like, well, we want to educate people on what's like be an entrepreneur. At the same time, it's like transparent. Like we want to market ourselves and get people to know who we are. You know, I mean, that's why you put yourself on a video camera in front of people. It's like, you don't just don't do this and be like, well, I don't want anyone to watch this. It's like bullshit. You want people to watch this.
Yeah.
But it's not like, and it's like, we all came in and I was like, well, I'm going to talk the way I talk and you're going to talk the way you talk and Gideon talk the way you talk. So I think partnerships can work in a sense where you kind of collaborate, but the decision that one makes isn't affecting your wallet. Yeah. And I think that's a big, big thing, and your future.
Yeah, for sure. And also having that separation, like you said, your future, your wallet, even the whole pride thing, right? Because if the three of us came together and we're like, we're going to create the Entrepreneurs Roundtable, and then we're going to like have a premium version, and we're going to have like a paid coaching group, and like we're all going to put our identities and our financial success and stability into this, then there'd be those problems. Like, well, I care less. Yeah, we need to educate people, help people. We have to make money. And then one person's like, well, actually, I'd rather not make money right away so we can help more people and grow that up first. There would be those issues. But because we all have our own thing, like, I've got BizDev Heroes, you've got Paleo Riot, Gideon's got his copywriting stuff. We're able to like show up and create something for our community and support each other. But then we're not like, there's not that whole ego and then also the insecurity of like, well, if Mike is doing it this way, or you said talking or whatever, like, well, Mike talks this way, that may keep some viewers away, and then that may keep us from making some. It's like, who cares? That's not the point. Like, the point is show up, be real, talk about our stuff, help some people in the process. And if this blows up and turns into something that is eventually monetizable, I mean, obviously those will be hurdles we have to accomplish down the road. Yeah. But it's not like our livelihood and our identities wrapped into it as much, because we have our own things. It's like the difference between like if all three of us were trying to lead a battle as three generals, it would be crazy. But if we were three separate generals with our own armies and we had a coordinated attacks, like, okay, you go low, you go high, okay, you're going to come around and box them in, like that's much more manageable than like all three of us are the general of this army. Like, we're going to do it together. Yeah.
And that's more like, yeah, that's also like what you bring to the table. That's, again, it's vision. It's like, what do you see? What is it that you see? So I think, I think leading back to the beginning of what the topic was and what I tell myself is, I'd probably tell myself that if you are going to do business partnerships, you have to do it this way and have that conversation. So I think I think I've had 6. I had a band. I did a t-shirt company I did with a buddy of mine. I did another t-shirt printing thing. Then I did a web company, and then I tried an online service with 3 other guys. I think that was 5. And what I went into it, there was never a conversation in the beginning. It was, we all have this great idea. Let's make money. And it's the stupidest freaking way to be in a business. It's like, especially with other people, it's just, it's so ridiculous. Like, everyone's going to buy this. Why? Well, I don't know. I thought about it last night and I think it's brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that actually segues into kind of like the main thing that if I could go back to tell myself, both, I guess mainly with I guess it's been kind of a reoccurring theme. I can think of a few different businesses where it's been the kind of like the strongest downfall, but that concept of, I don't know, because there's a thin line between, like, I truly believe that if someone is passionate about something, it doesn't matter how abstract it is, they can create a business. It just all depends on the amount of time and work they want to put into it. And I actually have a funny story to go along with that, because I was kind of on the fence, but like I have this. I'll get to the story in a minute, but like I believe that you can make a business out of just about anything. It just, like I said, it depends on how long you want to wait for success and how much.
The pet rock.
Pet rock, yeah. Versus on the other side, there's like way on the other extreme. So there's like over here, like I'm gonna like sell Magna Doodle art, and you know, like I'm gonna have to figure out a way. It's gonna take me maybe 10 years. But then on the other side, there's like, hey, I have this idea. I can start making money like this week, and I can like by the end of the year like make like $1 million. But is it something you're passionate about? You know, so there's that whole balance, and it's like trying to find that in between. Like I want to do this, but like how can I pivot it? You know, so like we were talking the other day. So for like me with, you know, wanting to train up business, you know, business owners, entrepreneurs, it was like, okay, so where should I focus? Like which one? And we were really like talking about that back and forth. Like, okay, so this specific niche here has the best opportunity for success versus like I could go over here and it's more glamorous and it may seem more fun, but it'd take a lot longer to build that brand versus if I attack this one niche first,
right,
to help them, like I could get a foothold so much faster and then I could expand out. And then so maybe instead of getting here in 10 years, I got there in 5 years because I started over here and I started growing that tribe. And so there is that balance. And so that's, I think, the main thing I would tell myself looking back is like, you really have to figure that out. And you can't just get super excited about an idea and run for it. And you can't just get super excited about making money and run for it, because there has to be that kind of coming together in the middle. And
yeah. And I think to that point though, I think where you say that anyone could turn anything into a business, I think you're right. So let's say like for you, I mean, every time we talk, I see comic books and all this comic stuff behind you. Like you know, you are a huge fan. Now there's the top umbrella of the mindset of majority of people who love comic books. And there's probably this universal theme about it's becoming someone it's being able to fantasize about a lifestyle that I can't truly have because I can't fly or I can't bend metal or things like that. So it's like this group of people, maybe they relate to comics because they can put themselves in those characters. But then you have these wars between people who love comic books, and they defend the crap out of them because it's like, well, DC Comics' world is better like this because it's structured like this. Like, well, no, Marvel Comics is better like this. I'm sure there's like 10 billion other like different companies that I don't know because I'm not in that world. But then you break it down more and more, and there might be someone who's just a Green Lantern fan. And then you are a diehard Green Lantern fan. But there was something in one break it down even more. There was something in one of the issues, like 258B or whatever the fuck it is, and some storyline in there you liked, and you just like, I liked that villain, so I'm gonna draw them. And all you do is draw that, but you put them in funny situations. So now you've got comic book fans down to, what is that, Marvel or DC?
DC.
So you got DC fans. Now it's even more targeted. Then you got Green Lantern fans, which is super targeted. And then you've got the one that you draw. So now you're just drawing this and putting it out there. Well, that demographic, that small one, that whole big one is probably noticing, but that small one is what's wanting to buy. And all of a sudden you're like, I really like drawing this. I don't know why, but I just do it. I do it every week. And now I'm posting it every week. And that's where it could turn into a business. It's like, hey man, why don't you create a poster? Or, I mean, obviously there's copyrighted things involved, but maybe you could find something that you could sell based on doing that. And maybe you like doing that, and maybe you're a huge Frisbee fan. So then maybe you paint that on Frisbees, you know, and all of a sudden you find people who love Frisbee golf who are huge Green Lantern fans. They want to buy that. But the problem is when people do that, they don't have that business mind to go, oh, well, how do I talk? It's like, okay, I could do that. And if I sell one of these, I can make like a margin of, I could sell these for like $40, make $20 or $25 off of, for my margin, and I need to sell X of these. That means that I can make blah, 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 X amount of dollars. So it's like, there's the business takeoff sense where you're like, this is a really niche down idea and this could take off. And then there's the people who could see that. And then there's the people who are like, I just like drawing. I'll never figure it out, but I'm just going to do that, but there's always that target market that you're going to relate to, so, if you have that creative ability, if you can have that way to turn on that business mind of yours and say like, well, how do I turn this into something? It's like, well, let me break down what my market is that I actually would want to buy this. Because I think anyone will buy anything. Yeah. You know, like I'm a huge music fan. And if it's a certain band, like this band called Balance and Composure is like my all-time favorite band. If I see anything that they're putting out, like I'm gonna be like, I want to buy that. You know, but yeah. I don't know. All of that like makes sense. Like no, where it's based on the point that anyone could turn anything into a business, but they have to think of it like a business.
Yeah.
And then they have to put the dedication and the behaviors into making it into a business and if it's not built off of passion, you're never gonna want to do it consistently.
Yeah, and like you said, it just. Because, okay, I believe this, but I've always kind of been like a little part in the back of my mind is like, well, and when I say this, I should say like, I'm not like trying to say like anyone. So, you know, some kid who's orphaned in a jungle somewhere and there's not, you know, whatever. I'm saying in the majority of the time, right? There are, I know, some extenuating circumstances, but, you know, if you live in America, if you live in, you know, any country like that, like there's obviously opportunity. And I hear where I live is a town with just a lot of unemployment and a lot of just mentality of like, this is the way it is. It's not my fault, but I just accept life this way. And I complain rather than that's what I get. I accept that I get a crappy life, but what I get back is I get to complain about it. And I get tired of hearing the complaining. And sometimes I feel like sometimes I have to bite my tongue, you know, whether it be around town or even sometimes with my family, like, okay, am I going too far with like my whole anyone can change their circumstance? And I even remember talking to Gideon about this, like, you know, at the whole Ignite event where I was like, you know, giving an example, you know, and there's all this whole minimum wage talk and stuff. And so I've had this discussion a lot of like anyone could just start a business and do it if they want to and whatnot. So I found a great story, which this just happened a couple of nights ago. And so now like that little voice that's like, oh, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm convinced that, you know, especially in America, you know, London, UK, any of these kind of like, there's no reason. So I come out of the Apple store. My wife was going to go we were going to go see Jurassic World. And so she goes to this like makeup stores and whatnot. And I went into the Apple store.
Ew.
You what? Makeup or Apple?
I'm just kidding. Oh yeah. Makeup.
And so you know, she had like 2 or 3, you know, makeup and shoe and purse stores to go into. And I had this just one store. And so I was in there for a while. And so I came out, I'm like, I'll go sit and I'll read or something on my phone while she's still shopping. And I sit down, this lady's on the phone. She's talking. She's kind of loud. So, and I'm naturally just kind of nosy. So I just hear, like, I can try to tune it out, but I'm going to listen. There's just no way. So I'm hearing her talking and she's sitting like right next to me, the next little table to the outdoor area. And at first I was like, oh, she sounds like she's like a life coach or, you know, maybe a business coach, but more like a life coach because she's like, and she was kind of looking into her phone kind of weird, but I thought she was, you know, she was an older lady. So, and by the way she was dressed, she just seemed like a normal, like middle-class lady. So I didn't think that maybe she was super technically savvy. So I
nice
thought
ageism. Nice ageism.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to, you know,
we're not targeting that market.
No, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but what I'm saying is she's a little older. She wasn't like old, but she wasn't like young. And so I'm saying she's like this, like talking, like she's like trying to talk into it. I thought, I'm like, oh, okay. So she just thinks that if she actually looks at the speaker, it works better or something, or what, you know. I didn't think too much of it. So I start like reading or whatever. And I start hearing her. I'm like, is she like a life coach? Because again, she didn't look like she would fit like the normal life coach type persona. So I start listening a little bit more. And she's going on about how like, you know, like in your past, you had some issues. Maybe you had good parents, but they were a little controlling. And so you didn't have space. And she starts going, I'm like, okay, maybe life code, maybe psychic, or I don't know. Like, has she met this guy before? Because is she trying to guess, or does she like talking about his patterns? And then I was like, you know what? I don't know. I can't figure it out. So like, I try to go back to my stuff and she gets off the phone and she turns to me and she's like, oh, I'm not a psychic, in case you're wondering. And I kind of was like, what? Oh, yeah. I kind of laughed. And she's like, oh, I read trees. And I thought she said I read trees. And I was like, oh, okay. I missed that last word. So I'm just going to politely nod and laugh and just be like, oh, yeah. And then she said it again. And she started talking about it. I was like, okay, wait, I'm sorry. You read what? And she said trees. So I'm like looking behind me. I'm like, these things, like, how does like a tree, like, is it this tree? And then somehow you're connecting to this guy? I was like really lost. And she goes, no, like people draw pictures of trees and then send them to me and I read their tree and talk to them. And I was thinking two things went off when she said that. I was like, first off, that's pretty much sounds exactly like what a psychic does.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'm not a psychic. And then she goes on to describe like the very definition of a psychic. But then I was like, seriously? I was like, so she's sitting here at the mall on a whatever night, you know, with her like iPhone 5, and someone emails, literally draws a tree, emails it to her or texts it to her, and she sits there and she goes, okay, gets on Skype or phone or whatever and looks at the tree and gives this guy like a reading. I'm like, if she can make a business, like if she can convince people to draw a tree, because, you know, most people have a phobia like, oh, I can't draw. To draw a tree, to send it to her, and she will give you a reading and you will pay her for it. I was like, anyone can create a business on anything, because that's impressive. I was like, I was pretty impressed that she was developed business around reading.
Did she say she charged for this? Or did like money come up in any sense?
Well, I didn't specifically ask, but she said the two things that one, this guy, I could tell by the conversation as I listened, was a complete stranger. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, you know, I was reading a tree for my cousin so-and-so. It was like pretty obvious, like that's what she does. And then she actually said, she's like, this is what I do. She goes, I read trees. Like, and then she's like, oh, you want to do one? And I was like, yeah, no thanks, I'm good. So she was like prospecting, right? So like she was smart, because not only, what's that?
So wow, she got the sales in her too.
Yeah, because instead of just getting off the phone and going, okay, there's some money, you know, I don't have any clue. I honestly, I was so taken back. Like I was kind of like, oh wow, like did I hear that right? I wish I had stopped to talk to her a little bit. But she went into like her sales pitch. So I was like, oh, I got to get out of this before I spend the next 20 minutes telling her why I don't want my tree read. That sounded weird.
Well,
but anyway.
But I think that it's funny that we talk about this, because I literally this last week, even literally today, so I was driving back to Santa Monica from the Valley, which I highly recommend no one ever do, especially, well, I don't know, at 11:30 in the morning, because there was traffic for miles and miles and it sucked. So anyway, second, don't move to LA, because LA sucks. Third, so I'm sitting in the car and I started thinking about this for some reason, because my mind's always on, and I started thinking about how anyone could start a business. And I hate when people say that, oh, well, you know, just say, oh, well. And, you know, and you said it before about, you know, you blame the world. It's like, you know what, man or woman, just no one owes you shit. No one owes anybody shit, you know? And like, as much as a liberal that I am, I think that, you know, I think there's a way that giving people money to get off their ass and do things is needed. But I think that giving them money consistently for them to sit down and do nothing is ridiculous, because I think that anyone can get off their ass, and everyone has a passion. I think anyone has a passion. And if they can't think of it, they're probably just in self-pity and self-woe. Yeah. And it clouds what their creativity is. But everyone has one thing that they do. And just like, you know, one way to figure that out is pay attention to the magazines you buy. When you're in a store and you look at the magazines you buy, what are the two that you pick up? And I asked this to a buddy of mine, and I said, what two magazines do you buy? Because he was like, you know, I'm an accountant, or he does HR for a company. And you know, and as I'm traveling, because like I sold all my stuff right now and I'm currently traveling the country, when I stop in and stay with friends, they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. I'm like, well, you can do that. And they're like, oh, it's easy for you. Like, why is it easy for me? No one gave me my company. I'm still building it. And I'm now starting a second company. It was all because of vision of mine. And I'm testing, like, I'm not rich by any means. And they're like, well, I can't do that. I'm like, why can't you do that? You know, and then my friend's like, well, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I'm like, well, what two magazines do you buy? He's like, well, I like to buy Running Magazine and some music magazine. And I said, well, if both come at the same time, what would you read first? And he said, I'd read the running one. I'm like, well, there's your passion. He's like, well, how do I make a career out of that? I'm like, well, that's for you to figure out. Yeah. You know, if that's what you want, I'm like, what would you rather do all the time? He's like, I would just like to run and read running magazines and buy running gear. It's like, why don't you do that then? You know, and figure out a way to do that. So if I was broke, like totally broke, if you're at rock bottom, all you can do is go up, you know? So if you're sitting there and like, I have nothing, well, you better figure it out, and don't apply for jobs at some store and then bitch about your minimum wage. People, they don't pay this. Like, Jesus Christ, does anything make you happy? You know? find the thing you're passionate about and just start figuring out a way to sell it. You know, like there was a guy, and real quick, there was a guy who was an Uber driver last year who made over $200,000 because he was making jewelry, or his wife made jewelry, and he would just hang it on the rearview mirror.
Yeah, that was a good
when people got in the car and they're like, "Oh, what is that?" He's like, "Oh, I think it was him." He's like, "Oh, I just make jewelry." "Oh, what is that?" "I had $10." The guy made over $200,000.
Yeah,
because he was passionate about doing that. I mean, granted,
whatever he made for Uber, that was like 200,000 just off of his jewelry.
Yeah.
And he considered himself like a mobile jeweler, basically. Like he was a jeweler, and that rather than, getting a store and then complaining, oh, there's no traffic, what the economy, he's like, how can I get my merchandise in front of people? And he figured it out, and that was genius. But it also took a lot of work, and
it's like it goes back to last week. If people were born with it or not, like I guarantee that anyone watching this or anyone who's alive has had that one moment where they get themselves out of being backed in a corner, and they just figured it out. So if you really dislike something, stop bitching about it and figure it out. Like it bothers the hell out of me, because especially me, it's like, don't tell me that you can't do anything. It's like, everything I do, none of this was given to me. I'm able to travel the country. I sold everything I own. I only made like $3,000 out of it, and that's gone, but I also have my own company, drive80.com animation, it's like I have that, but I maybe sell a couple projects, like, I don't know, on average for lately. And I kind of step back, like maybe one a month, and it's like a little bit of money, and it's kind of like, I could figure it out. And if I really was driven to keep doing that, I would be pushing and pushing and pushing. So I don't know. That's my rant.
I'm there with you. So for example, going back to the whole comic thing, now I do love comic stuff, but I actually, the funny thing is I haven't actually bought comic books in over 10 years, like probably close to 15 years. But so I do have all the stuff though. I do still like them. But going back, like with that, like, let's just say I was like, oh, I can't start a business. I don't have anything, any business stuff. And then you're like, well, what do you like? And if I was like, well, I like comics, which wouldn't have been my first thing, but just to say, and I could have been like, well, I don't know what I can do. Like, there's so many ways, there's so many models, because there's anywhere from like, well, I want to start my own comic books and start producing my own stories, to like, oh, I just want to sit around and like read comic books all day. Well, I could start up a show. I could start up a blog where I'm reviewing. I go to the bookstore or the comic shop and read all day long, take a couple notes, come home, fire up the webcam, do a podcast or do a web show, do some blog articles. And then I start building that fan base, and I start throwing affiliate links. So every time I review, if I'm reading all day long, I can come home. Let's say I go read for 6 hours. I want to put in an 8-hour day, right? I'll go read for 6 hours, come home and record for 2 hours, or write for 2 hours. And every single thing I reviewed, I'd have an affiliate link to an Amazon where you could buy it. I would be at the bookstore. As I read something, I would take a picture of it. I'd post it out to my social networks. I'd be like, oh, this looks really good. Or this is what I'm reading right now. Hey, here's the link if you want to check it out. And then honestly, like, I could literally, like, 6 hours a day reading comic books, 2 hours a day of kind of working, but still also kind of fun stuff. I could easily make, 40 to 60 grand a year just off affiliate links, just to Amazon, just doing that with that.
Or your YouTube page could be huge, and it could get you like a lot. Like, there's one guy who actually reviews movies. He looks kind of awkward when he's reviewing it, but he's got a ton of comics stuff behind him, and he's like, you could tell he's really passionate about it, really soft spoken. And I'm sure, like, and the worst thing about being on YouTube is, like, he probably just gets pummeled by trolls. But again, it comes along with the territory. Like, if you're starting a business, you're going to get destroyed in any sense, but you got to completely just dismiss it. And if it's constructive, listen. If it's not, then give your attention and energy to the positive part. But the guy does this, and he runs a show talking about movies, and he breaks it down.
There's a Nostalgia Critic who does the same thing, but they're like old movies that are hard to even find. So it's even that much more niche down. And there's Angry Joe, who's on their same network, where he just plays video games, which is even harder than reading comics, because you actually have to play through and beat the whole thing. And some of these can take a lot longer just for one game. He does YouTube videos, and he's honest and he's himself. You know, he doesn't care. He'll swear, he'll go crazy, he'll like be like just screaming at the thing like a maniac because he's like, I can't believe Activision they sold out so much and this game sucks, it's just a corporate commercial. And he'll go on, he dresses up, he has this thing where he dresses as Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe, but he calls it Corporate Commander, and he's like the leader of Activision because he hates Activision and how they're so and so anytime like a game, he has like a corporate commander come in and talk about, we're going to print money, they'll buy this game. They don't, you know, and he'll just go on. And the guy's a lunatic, but people love it. I watch it and I don't even play video games almost never. And I love his show because of it. And the dude makes all of his money, not even off of these other things I talk about, not even off of like sponsorships and affiliate links, just off of ad revenue from YouTube. Like he's literally tapping just the lowest hanging fruit and just doing the one thing, and he's like making so much money. Like just imagine if he was a business guy and he was doing all these other things as well. Like,
right.
He took a lot of work to get there.
Well, that's another thing too, is like, you should, you know, another note to tell like my younger self is that stick with it. Yeah. Stick with it, because people, so like, okay, so the three of us, you, me, and Gideon, like we have these new products we're launching, and I said the other day in our group, I'm like, you know, we're putting too much energy into building these damn things, which is, you should build quality stuff, but we're answering questions that aren't even being asked about what we think is being a problem. So I'm like, just put it out there, you know? And at the end of the day, that we're like, okay, well, if I sell this one, it's like, nah, man, like take the one you're doing, but if you're putting all this energy to it and like you launch it and then like nobody buys it in the first week, I'd say about 90% of people will just jump ship, or 95% of people will jump ship. Well, it didn't work. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, dude, you have to get in front of people. You have to get in front of your audience, you know? And that's why like I love the whole AppSumo thing or in the Facebook thing of like, find that one goal, you know, like if you're going to sell it, give yourself that one goal and say, all right, well, what does success look like? All right, I am going to, I'm the YouTube guy. And if he's doing that with a real business sense, he'd say, I want to get 1 million, or what's like a really good amount of viewers, like 20,000. Let's say he wants like, this year I want to get 20,000 subscribers to my YouTube page. Mm-hmm. So everything I do has to get me views, right? Mm-hmm. And if he went for the first month and only got 10, it's not a failure. You just learned a lesson of what not to do. So now the next month, you're like, okay, first lesson learned. Do I still want to do this? Second of all, you know, what could I do differently? Well, I don't know how to market. Okay, let me go research who's the YouTube channel that I like. It's this guy over here. Let me go backwards. Let me email him. How did you build your audience? You know, like everyone thinks that people aren't obtainable. Like you can email them and ask them a question and they'll reply to you. And you could just say like, hey man, I really want to build my channel like you. How did you do it? Would you mind telling me? And he might come back and say, go F off. I don't want to tell you. Or it might be really cool and say, oh, that's awesome. I actually like your channel. Hey, let me on my channel in my video to say, hey dude, go check this guy's out. That might get him 200 views right there, you know? So if you track it and then that causes behaviors, but whatever doesn't happen in the beginning, if you truly believe in what you're doing and you can push and just be creative with it and try to work it as many ways as possible, then I think it could really work. You know, like, but you have to stay with it. Like you can't just give up. Let's say that guy in Uber, maybe for the first week he was putting it up and nobody cared. If he took those down, he would not have made over $200,000 doing that.
True story. But
because he stuck with it, and you have no idea within that, and it was a year, you have no idea at what point of that year that it was the hockey stick effect. There could have been 7 months. I mean, I don't think it would have been 7 months, but he might have for the first couple months had no bites and but maybe because he stayed within that area, he became known as the guy selling jewelry, you know? So he stuck around with it and tried it, and then it started working. So it's like
he get better at knowing what to say, how to bring up subjects, how to respond, how to do sell stuff.
Exactly.
That whole thing, it made me think of the first time I was like a full-time youth pastor. Like I'd done some stuff in the past, but like just with like my home church and stuff, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was in this like training program and I was like just trying to figure it out, right? And I could not get my group to grow. We were like right next to the high school. We had all these things going for us, but I was at like 9 kids like every single week for like months. And so like 10 months into this thing, right? Like I started to feel like a failure. Like all the other guys who I had friends with that started around the same time as me, they were growing. They're like 15, 20. And I was 9. And it got to the point where like I'd have a student that would like message me on or text me or something and be like, hey, I'm bringing a friend tonight. I'd be like, sweet, we're finally going to hit 10. Because this is my goal. Like everything at that point was like, I have to hit 10 before, and then I can start scaling stuff up. And I'd be like, we're going to hit 10. So-and-so's bringing a friend. And then someone else would not be there. And then like, or 2 more people wouldn't be there. And so like, we'd actually hit 8. And so it's like, no, like I couldn't do it. I just could not break it. And all the advice I was getting, nothing was working. And so I was trying all these things, and I was trying like the things you were supposed to do. So then I started trying, okay, what will actually work? So I started looking around, and the town was full of skate kids, and there was nowhere to skate because it's a mountain town. There were no sidewalks. There was a couple of places with parking lots, and the police would get called on them, including the church. So like I went before the board. I came up with this presentation, got approval. I built some ramps, and I launched it. And no joke. So I think it was a year. So I'd been there an entire year, and I had never hit more than 9 students at one time. And I was there for a year and like 9 months. So year 1, I went from like two or 3 kids. I built it in a year up to 9 kids. And then in the next 9 months, I hit 40 kids. Because
Wow.
when I did this and it grew like immediately, like I did a couple like, I knew some marketing stuff. So like I did some stuff, like I purposely only worked on the ramps. I would start like 45 minutes before school got out, because I'd have the high school would walk this way through our parking lot and the junior hires walk this way. So for like 2 or 3 weeks, I was doing like word of mouth stuff. They're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm building ramps. They're like, what for? And so by the time I even launched, there was already some buzz, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna have food. We're gonna have, all kind of stuff. So when I launched, we had like, I think like 18 kids, which was like I was like, oh my goodness, I almost doubled, like the 10. And by the time I left, just like a few months, well, I guess it was less than a year. Like we were hitting, when I left, we were like 35, 40 kids. Like if we had 25 kids, it was like, what's going on? Why is there no one here?
Yeah.
All because I kept trying. And then I didn't just do the same thing. I had to pay attention to who I was. And I did some other stuff too, other than this, based on more who I was. And who was my target market, and what was their pain. And their pain was, I wasn't in the luxury where I could just really switch my target market so much, but because I only had so many kids, I was in a small town. So I was like, what is their pain that they currently have? And then the cool thing is once I solved their pain, they brought people with them. Because here's the thing, like when I had 15 skate kids show up to skate, there was another 20 girls who wanted to hang out and watch them skate and try to talk to them. There was another 10 or 12 like wannabe skaters who would show up and like want to watch and kind of pretend like they were skaters. And then there'd be like some other just like kids who would just go, oh, well, there's a crowd, so let's go play our Pokemon on the edge of that crowd instead of where we used to play our Pokemon cards. So like it just grew, and I was able to hit like all the demographics because I was able to hit this one. And I don't know, it was one of my first huge like marketing, basically.
If you were like, after seeing that, if you were like, I want to get 100, what would you have done to get 100 kids?
Well, I'm a big fan of Noah's theory of, try a bunch of things, and then when something works, keep doing it. So I would have ramped it up. I was getting more involved.
Ramped it up?
Yeah. I was getting more and more involved, and there was a group of parents trying to get the town to actually create an official skate park. So I started getting invited to those events. They're planning events. They had a big fundraiser. They gave us a booth for free. And I would have kept doing stuff like that. Honestly, I would have probably started doing competitions. I mean, looking back at it now, having actual events. I took them to a couple of things. I would have probably then tried to get some teams to come in, get some events going, get some, giveaways, cool stuff like that. And I'd already been doing some online media stuff. So I would have incorporated that. So they got to like spread the word even more because they got to see themselves. And I was doing that a little bit before I left. And actually, it was funny because I ended up, if I had stayed, the reason the success actually caused my failure, because both the senior pastor and the board and everything did not like that. That's who we were growing. They were like wanting like kids to show up on like Sunday mornings with like suit and ties and be all polite. And instead they had like all these like skate kids who were like dropping F-bombs. And so they didn't really like that. So I ended up having to leave. There was too much tension because of this, and I wasn't willing to back down on.
So you didn't have the same vision.
No, exactly. Back to the first thing.
Yeah.
And so it got crazy, but it's a whole nother topic. So like a month and a half after I left, that group, I don't remember their name, but basically it was this group that had formed to try to get the city to bring the skate park back. And they'd been getting funds donated and fundraisers and all kinds of stuff. They actually came to us and said, hey, we would actually like to build the skate park on the church property, which we had a ton of property. And originally I talked to the pastor, we had talked about doing that in this one section. And they're like, we will pay for everything. The city will come in and do it, a professional skate park, pay for everything. All you have to do is have it open 2 days a week minimum. Like as long as you have it open 2 days a week, that everything's paid for. And again, I wasn't there anymore, and so like it didn't go through. But if I was still there, you better believe that would have been like the only thing at that point. I would have like driven that so hard to get that through, and then we would have been huge. We would have had like an actual skate park on our property, and the only one in town. We would have been the only legal place other than your yard to skate in town. We would have had probably a couple hundred. It would have been insane.
So like, again, like that, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's what people don't understand too, is that they want this. Let's say that you were starting and all of a sudden you went full force and said, I want to build a skate park and have competitions and you want all this stuff. If that happened on the first day, it might've been disaster because you didn't know how to do it and handle it. And you also didn't know your audience. So it could have blown up your face. And then that could have, it's like, my point is that everyone wants to get from the beginning to just the exciting part, but the learning process is slow for a reason. So you get to learn your audience, you get to learn what's working, you get to learn what's not working, and you also can handle it personally. So if you wanted to get 100 kids and you opened up and the next week you had 100 kids show up, you might have been like, holy crap, I've got no chairs, they can't hear me, the times are wrong because what time school is, or all this stuff. Like, we've got no food, I'm just talking too long, no one gives a crap. But if you're starting with the smaller sense, it's like those are wins, and it's teaching you, and it's building character, it's building, it's giving you knowledge on what to do. It's also testing it, like, again, how long do you want to do it? But it's easing you in to that next level so you can take with it. And then, but that's where there's that hockey stick effect where it's level, and it skyrockets because you've acquired that knowledge and can handle that. And it's like those kids coming back and saying, we want to build that skate park here. If the church in the beginning would have been the same vision as you, that could have boomed and been something huge. But that also never would have happened if you didn't stick with what you were doing and try that out. And it created this whole new thing, Yeah,
and the other thing too is part of it is by winning over that first group. I had a group of like 15 to 20 kids who, once like I kind of won them over, they became a huge driving force of it too, because they were the ones spreading the word. One of the kids, it was his mom who was the head of the chairman of this organization, so he's telling her about it. And then we'd have new kids come in and be like, oh, what is this, da da da. And then they would almost even help police it, because they're like, we'd have punk kids come in and want to like do whatever, and they're like, nah, like you're gonna run this for everyone. And so having that core group, or like as Seth Goen talks about, that building that tribe, that helped grow it too, because it was like, how am I going to manage 35, 40 kids, well, with me and just a couple leaders? And it was like, well, it's not just me. Like I have like this core group of them on a bad day, like 12, that are really dedicated and really passionate about this thing, and they help grow it, they help police it, they help keep it a cool environment and a cool place to be. And it all, like you said, became slow. Versus if it was like that, it was 100 people, then not only would all those things you said, but it also would have been like, one or two little things go wrong, which plenty of stuff went wrong in the beginning. It could have been like, oh, this place isn't cool anymore, let's go somewhere else. And there was some of that, but then I had enough of that core to where, when we dipped down, because people were like, oh, we don't like that there's rules here, like we're going to go and skate wherever else. The group stayed, helped maintain it, and they'd go do whatever. The cops would get called or whatever. Then they'd come back and be like, oh, okay, this really is.
Yeah, they see it. And that's when they get it, and that's also how you can talk to them. And with the parents part too, I mean, you could have been like, if the parents were like, oh, I don't really want to go and do this, you could be like, well, maybe it's another way that you can go and, as your kid's doing this, you could become an adult again and just hang out with other adults and talk about adult things. Or you can network maybe if, or you know, this could be your way of getting out of the house if you're a stay-at-home parent, you know, like there's always different ways you could spin it and stuff if you just can look like layers down from where you're at, you know. And I think that I would say that anyone watching this, you know, just to kind of spin it back, is to be like, if you have an idea, or if you're sick of working, you know, I think this was one of the AppSumo, the entrepreneur, that was the 1K program that they have.
Yeah,
was that write down like 10 ideas which you would want to do, you know, or like I would say find the 2 things you're passionate, find the one thing you're really passionate about, and just sit down with a note paper. Don't type it. Like get a pen and paper out and write 10 different ways you could spin that to make money, you know, and then just, why not? It's your time. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But at least you gave yourself that time to think about it, because everyone sits around and bitches all the time about, not everyone bitches all the time, but the people who want to become, you know, entrepreneurs, is that they think about it, but they don't ever give themselves the time to really flush it out and see if it could be a business. Mm-hmm. And then they don't ever ask anybody if they'd actually want that. You know, like, would you want to do this? Would you want to buy this? No. And it's like, yeah, I would want to buy this. All right. Do I want to make this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing, that too many people trying to get started, not only do, like you said, like that's huge, is like that they don't stick with it. But part of the reason they don't stick with it, I think, is because they try something they don't actually care about, or they're not actually passionate about.
Right.
And I know, like, I've just seen that too many times. And to me, it's kind of confusing, because it's like, why are you trying to do this? Like, the whole point is to get out of your job that you hate. Like, why get into a business that you hate, you know, just because? And I think that's part of why it's so easy to drop it, is because you're like, I don't actually like this anymore.
Well, they're also used to they're so, you think about it, like I was 16 when I started working a job, and I was 26 when I started working for myself. And that's 10 years of being programmed that this is the way things are done. So when you go into business for yourself, you don't know what you're doing. So you go back on what you know. And then you kind of also make it hard for yourself, because you're like, well, this is the audience that, like, when I started Drive 80, I was focused on, I didn't have a demographic who I went after. And that was where my biggest problem was. I mean, luckily the company's still going, but I think I could be way bigger if I knew who my target market was. But in a sense, I did. Like, I wanted to just work with green companies, or companies that are bettering the world, because I wanted to use what we did as a way to educate the world on how to better itself. And I strayed from that because I didn't think I didn't know if that market existed or not. And I was like, I don't know if they have any money. I don't know, but I just, in my gut, that's all I wanted to do. And I strayed from it. Like, yeah, we did get clients, and I love our clients, but I think we would get more and be a stronger entity if I would have gone just with my gut. And at the end of the day, is like, that's where I started backing off as well, because I didn't have a focus on who to target towards. I mean, luckily there was a need for companies who, you know, were frustrated that people didn't get what they do, and then they would contact us. But I think if I was speaking directly to that target that I wanted to work with, I could make it happen. And in this sense, now it's like I'm almost ready to do a video open letter to that demographic and be like, we want to work with you. Like, this is why we want to work with you. And this is what your pain is. And this is how we can help it. And just put it out there, instead of being like, I don't know, everyone keeps telling me. And then everyone around me in business was saying, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You need to do this. You need to do this. It's like, because they were so attuned to the normal marketing approach of just being safe, you know?
Yeah.
And they were like, you have to do everything.
Yeah. That concept of like saying no to most people so you can help the people that you actually need to help, right, is a foreign concept. It's like, no, I want to help everyone, and I want to have everyone as a customer.
Well, I mean, I don't think having everyone as a customer is also a bad approach. It's having the people you want to help be the approach. And they also have to have that need. You know, I know a ton of nonprofits have no clue, have no way of, people don't understand how they're helping people. And that's where I stepped in. I'm like, dude, you're the perfect way I want to work with, because you probably don't do a lot of marketing. At the same time, is like everything you're doing to market is confusing everybody. But what you're giving to the world is really beneficial. And like, we have this one client we just helped, and they help families like get off the ground, you know, and they hit this wall, and these guys, they come in with their services and they teach them about like, you know, just how to get off, how to get themselves back to being sustainable on their own and how to build as a family. And I'm like, that's cool, you know, but then if a company came to us and said like, we have this, you know, I don't know, we sell cool knives. I'm like, well, what the hell is that doing? You know, like, yeah, we could do some cool thing about knives. It's like, how's that going to benefit anybody? You know? And that's where I'm just kind of like, nah. I seem to be boring, Jared.
No, you're not boring me.
But
it's this weather. It's so hot. It's draining me.
Live by the beach. It's freezing.
I would love to live.
Live by the beach. That's all you got to do.
I would, but man, if no one's ever just given me a house by the beach,
Yeah.
and like, I would love to, but I can't do that. Only you can do that, Mike.
I know. You were given all this opportunity by everyone else. Everyone let you do this. No, not at all.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up today.
That wraps up our bitch fest.
Yeah. Why don't you take just a second, like we always do, and talk about your? I'm assuming you're gonna be talking about the Make Some Noise challenge, or is that not ready to talk about yet?
Yeah. It's the whole back end. So what I've been working on is this whole. Just to be transparent, I'm working on this whole back end structure of an intro page that, you know, talks about this product, and it's been such a pain in the ass to put together, and I'm still testing it. Where I'm just like, just put it out there. So I created this challenge. It's focused on CrossFitters who've been it's focused on CrossFitters who've been going to CrossFit for over a year, and they're frustrated that they're not getting the results that they want. So I created this way to focus on their diet more and also give it some exercise benchmarks. So you can and it's broken up into 4 sections, and every time you beat a section, it's like a challenge. Then you level up to the next one. It's the same exact challenges, but the days increase. So my vision of it is, I really just want to build a community, you know, and my mission statement with the whole Paleo Ride thing is really to just build a community and for people to break away from who they think they are, or to cause a movement of people who want to break away from who they think they are and unveil who they're supposed to be. And I think that this idea is a really cool way to get a lot of people together in a community to challenge themselves to get to this new level where they might be hitting a wall with, you know, you could go and say, I want to lose a lot of weight and I want to get healthy. But if you don't really have something to build towards or a goal to build towards, if it's like, I want to lose 20 pounds, like, well, how are you going to lose 20 pounds? Well, I don't know. Yeah. So this whole thing is to get you to lose 20 pounds. And it's also putting you around people who want to lose 20 pounds. And so I'm going to launch it pretty soon. I'm probably going to beat the hell out of it, because my goal is I want to get about 1,000 people in it within the year. Because I think that's going to be pretty cool. So that's like that's my number, and anything that I do is going to work backwards to get to that number. So I'm excited.
That's cool. Yeah, I know. I started it yesterday, going through it, and it's huge for me because it's one of those things to where I've been working, you know, obviously with you for a while, and I kind of hit a lull, and it was like, oh, what's my motivation to do this, and what do I get off track with stuff. And it's a really clear goal. And the reason I love it is from when you first told me about it, is it's almost like you've created a belt system, like, you know, martial arts has, where it's like, oh, if you're a yellow belt, that obviously means something different than if you're like a green belt. And so these bands, it's almost like creating that belt system for like the whole CrossFit kind of paleo thing, where you can kind of level up, know who you are, and then also just have that challenge to get to the next level, and then start to see results. So I'm excited to come out the other end of it. My goal is to be the first person to go through the whole program.
It's hard, man. I literally wrote it it took me 5 minutes to write out the whole program, because I'd been seeing things where people were doing systems like this, where they were giving, like, you know, belts and bands for leveling people up and stuff like that. And I was like, let me just kind of create one. And I was like, holy crap. And I started doing the first one, and I was like, this is freaking hard. But it's it's gonna be cool. So if you've got somewhat of a fitness level, then or your diet is pretty decent, it's either way. Like, your diet could be great, but your exercising might be really hard, or your exercising might be awesome, but the diet part might be super, super hard. But Yeah, that's it. The end.
Yeah. Cool. Well, kind of similar to you, I'm also been working on a product, and I've also been going through the whole back end, setting everything up, and I'm getting really close. Actually, the product is done. So if you go to bizdevheroes.com and you click on email mastery, it'll take you to the course. And what I'm working on right now is actually building like the rest of the sales funnel. So I actually have a free offer where I recorded 4 days worth of training videos. And the whole idea is you sign up, every day for 4 days, you get a training video that's talking about just how to improve your copy. And so how you can, how to use email in your business, and then how you can improve your copy and the way you talk and how you interact. And it says copy, but it's really sales and the way you speak and communicate to get more sales. And then of course that goes into, the offer for the actual course. So the course is available. You can actually buy it now. It's only $37. And that's all about using email for sales and business development. And then the free offer is what I was just talking about. And that'll be coming out here, hopefully, early next week. So
again, it's $37 for is that like a monthly thing, or is that
no, it's a one-time fee. It's a course. There's 4 sections. There's over 4 hours of video. And there's a couple videos I'm going to add to it, because just with us talking and going through this process, I realized how powerful this is for people in like direct sales. So, like Mary Kay, or like, It Works, insurance, salesmen, realtors, like that kind of stuff, where you're going out and you're having to generate leads to talk to people to turn into prospects and sales. So I have a couple just sections in the ad where I just literally go, hey, if you're this, here's how you can apply all this, just like a bonus section, because all the course and stuff's already done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that, because I think there's like my cousin, she I think we talked about this, but she's been wanting to do a business for a really long time, and she's really good at interior design. And I was like, you could just start contacting people and just do referral things. But I think like something like this would be perfect for her, because it would teach her, all right, well, I'm uncomfortable with sales, so this is going to help me in that sense. Is that my understanding?
Yeah. So the free course, the free kind of offer, is more of the sales and talking and understanding your customer side. And then the course is more of the actual, here's the tools and here's the strategy that I've developed over the last couple of years to actually go out and to be able to contact people through email and make sales.
Yeah, because this worked for you in the car when you were selling cars.
It started, when I was doing car sales, and I kind of reworked their email, because their email whole system was crap. So I was learning copy. I'd started learning copywriting already, so I basically reworked their whole thing and started doing my own emails, my own system. And then I started with it again when I started my own business, Nate Ideas, my marketing. I relied on that, and then I actually had a couple clients that even hired me to do it for them. So it's worked for me in the car industry, for my own business, and then for a couple other people for their business as well. And I've over all of this. So starting in, I guess, around 2011 is when it really started. And then the last 2 years of my business, when I really honed it in, developed it, I put it together in a course, and it's only $37.
Nice. Cool, man.
All right. Well, that's it for this week, I guess. So next week, I'm sure will be good too. So if you haven't already, go over to Facebook and search for the Entrepreneurs Roundtable, or just drop down the show notes and click on the link, request to join that group. We will let you in. There's only 2 people we're not letting in as of right now, and they know who they are. So we know who they are. Yeah, you know about this. We've had this discussion.
I didn't know there was I didn't know we would point it out.
I blocked them. There's 2 people.
The non-believers.
Yes, the spies, the corporate spies.
Spies. Dick.
You're onto something when you already have like grown men clearly with better things to do, like just trying to harass you and trying to like keep you down. So we must be onto something here with this. So.
That's so amazing. I love being a threat.
Yes.
Probably not. It's probably so far from being a threat.
I don't know why they perceive that. Like the 3 of us logging in every week, these grown men with tens of thousands of dollars, and 100 employees, like why they're bothering us. But anyways, that's more of a conversation for after we hit stop broadcasting, which
that's after we come up with our mission statement and our vision as a group.
Yes.
To grow.
So if you want more pieces of these behind the scenes type things that we kind of just linked here, join that group, because we have discussions about stuff all the time. So, all right, guys, we will see you next week. Thank you so much.